Good evening, folks. First of all, I am actually disappointed in each one of you who have come to the session because you choose my session over happy hour. Okay? Sorry. With that said, thank you for joining. Really appreciate. If you are reading the title of the slide, it's a mouthful. I can't read it myself, so I'm going to skip it. But we are going to make this session a little more interesting, okay? So that you get to feel the happy hour highness here. Okay? So with that, let me actually move on. The first to introduce is I'm not alone. To do this dance, I'm going to join by my colleague, Anusheel, who is a senior product manager at Google Cloud. Also, I'm joined by our esteemed customer, Bright Renolds from Palo Alto Networks, who is the director for infrastructure engineering and AI adoption at Palo Alto. Great. Before I get into the actual session and the details in terms of what we are covering, the first thing is, if you take a step back, what did AI era, the LLM era, promise for the enterprise, right? So 2 years back, it promised that it could actually remove the toil for every employee within the enterprise, automate stuff, with the outcome of that it will exponentially give us great improvement in productivity. That was the promise, right? Like I can do much more faster coding. I could do much more faster financial closure. I could get my procurement solved much more easier. That was the promise which it gave. Rightfully, that was a true promise. Rightfully, what did each one of us do in our organization? We unleashed the AI dog, right, into our enterprise. So hopefully you guys remember from your school days, Samuel Taylor, who wrote the famous poem, "Water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink." Imagine if Samuel Taylor was alive today, what he would have written? He would have written, "Agents, agents everywhere, each one running amok," right? That's what has happened. It gave the challenge is, it gave a rise to what we call as AI sprawl, okay? You have agents being built for the same function back again and again. You have ungoverned agents collaborating with each other with no control. Not just agents, talk about your own enterprise applications. The tools, the connectors, the connectivity, the APIs, all of them are ungoverned. You don't know which agent is accessing what, how secure is the data being exfiltrated. All of that is the challenge which we are facing right now. With that, what are we going to cover today? This is the three-part agenda. We are going to talk about how Gemini Enterprise makes that challenge go away. Okay? Wave your hand, call it Gemini Enterprise, it's going to go away. That's what we are going to cover. We are also going to hear from Bright how Palo Alto Networks is actually adopting AI and how they are addressing these challenges which they have. Okay? And finally, the most important thing, that one particular checklist that you can take away from this in this session so that you could go out and make governance inside your organization. That's what you're going to talk about. With that, I will get Anusheel on stage.
Thank you, Pramod. And I'm so excited to be here. So before we start talking about governance and security for Gemini Enterprise app, let me briefly talk about what the Gemini Enterprise app itself is. So we see Gemini Enterprise app as the front door to an agentic experience. And our goals are straightforward. First, we want to connect all existing enterprise data in a scalable and a secure way. Second, we want to provide all employees, whether they are developers or business users, with access to advanced AI tools, as well as specialized agents, so that they can get things done in ways that was previously not possible. And in doing so, they should be able to leverage all of the relevant enterprise context. And finally, we want to centralize governance, which allows not only for democratization of the AI tools, but doing it with the right company guardrails, policies in place. OK, with that, let me briefly also talk about what are the key building blocks of the Gemini Enterprise app. So first, it's the sheer intelligence of the models. So with the Gemini Enterprise app, you get the latest Gemini models on the day of release. Then you have out-of-the-box assistance with the Gemini Enterprise chat platform, with Notebook LM, with Canvas to be able to create slides and other kinds of documents. All of these are tools that are available to everyone right out of the box. And then you have the suite of specialized agents across a wide variety of different use cases. These can be agents that Google has built, for example, the deep research agent or the idea generation agent that come prepackaged with the application. Or these could be agents that employees are building, or they could also be third-party agents built by Google's partners and available via Google Cloud Marketplace. And then what powers all of this is the enterprise context. Using our connectors platform, you can bring in your enterprise data from a wide number of different applications. And then governance, which is the focus of our session. And for this, we have specialized tools that are helping administrators to visualize, secure, audit all of the agents, and broadly the entire Gemini Enterprise app. And what powers this centralized governance is the fact that Gemini Enterprise app can leverage all of the foundational building blocks that are enabled by the agent platform. This includes decentralized registry, agent gateway, agent identity, and these are all the things that we will talk about more in the following few slides. OK, so now that it is happy hour time, how do you think, Pramod, we should talk about the remaining section?
OK, so thanks, first of all, Anusheel, to giving the audience what is Gemini Enterprise app and the Gemini Enterprise platform, agent platform, all of it. I'm going to do a role play. OK, I'm going to play the cameo here of you all. I am the customer. I have a lot of questions in my mind to ask Anusheel about governance, security, and control. And I will let Anusheel answer the perspective of how Gemini Enterprise makes it easy. OK, so the first thing in my mind, Anusheel, I am really, when I look at governance, the first thing that comes into my mind is I need to know all the agents which is there within Gemini Enterprise. How do I easily discover them, control the lifecycle around them? That's my first thought in my mind, because if I don't know what is there in my inventory, I can't get to manage any of those.
That's really the first question we get from almost all of our customers. And in the Gemini Enterprise admin console, you can see all of the Gemini Enterprise agents in one place. You can see various additional details about those agents. For example, who created them, what is their state, when were they last used, etc. And admins can also control the state of these agents at any time. So that they can enable these agents, or they even have a kill switch to disable or suspend those agents at any point in time. And not just agents. You have a centralized view of all the data sources, the data connectors that you have enabled within the Gemini Enterprise app. Now, many of you would have heard from Thomas about the agent registry, which ingests all of your agents in the agent platform automatically. It does that for the Gemini Enterprise app as well. So all of Gemini Enterprise agents, all of the data connectors are automatically registered into the agent registry. So if you want to see not just Gemini Enterprise resources, but all the resources in your GCP environment, you can use the agent registry. And now registry is not just a discovery platform. It also has deep linkages with policy. So registry is integrated with agent gateway that allows you to govern all of these agents uniformly and centrally. And we'll talk more about it as well.
OK, awesome. So we saw clearly how Gemini Enterprise makes it easy to build agents and easy to discover them, control the lifecycle, all of that. But trust me, I don't build only agents in Gemini Enterprise in my organization. I have custom agents, which I get built outside of Gemini Enterprise. I have agents from my ISVs who are actually providing agents. How do I get them all in that same single pane which you talked about?
Yeah. So really, with Gemini Enterprise app, our goal is to become the hub of all agents in the organization. Now, these agents can be of various different types. They can be built by anyone. They can be deployed and running on various different runtimes. Right? Our goal is really to make Gemini Enterprise app the front door for all different agents, which is why we support well-established integration paths for many different agent types. This includes agents built on Agent Engine. We have an integration with Google Cloud Marketplace to bring in third-party agents. We also support A2A agents. So you can simply add any A2A agent by referencing its A2A card details and integrate it with the app with just a few clicks. Now, with our integration with the agent registry, we have also enabled this net new workflow where administrators can browse all of their agents within the agent registry and just follow a simple click-through workflow to be able to integrate that agent in the Gemini Enterprise app. Now, this approach has two benefits. First, because the agent is coming from the agent registry, it is in the governed path. And this removes or this eliminates shadow AI. And secondly, it provides a much simpler experience of integrating agents into the application.
OK, so we talked about agents. So we talked about agents being built within Gemini Enterprise. We talked about my custom agents, which is there within my organization. All of it can be bought into this registry and governed. Great. Enough of agents now. I'll come back to agents. What about the APIs and the MCP and the tools which I have, including the skills? Like, can I also bring them into the same registry and govern them?
Exactly, Pramod. So the same registry enables a similar experience for MCP servers and skills as well. Now, while we have the connectors platform that allow you to bring your enterprise data from almost all of the popular applications, but still most companies have custom data sources that are being exposed via MCP. So you can also browse all of the available MCP servers from the registry and then follow the same click-through workflow to add them to the Gemini Enterprise app. And here you also have the additional functionality to select only a subset of the tools and only integrate them in the Gemini Enterprise app. Then once you have those MCP servers added into the app, you can provide them as context in the Gemini chat platform, the out-of-the-box assistant. And you can also provide this capability to your employees to be able to add them as nodes to their own agents.
OK, great. So I've covered agents. I've covered tools. OK, let's talk about, I built an agent, folks, OK, which each one of you would have built. I'm sure you've built Anusheel. How do I share my agent, and who has access to my agent?
Yeah. So admins, Gemini Enterprise admins, have full control over the lifecycle management of an agent. So they can, and this includes sharing as well. So at any point in time, they can choose who they want to share that agent with. They can share it with one specific employee, a specific team, or the entire organization if the agent is something that could benefit everyone. We have also heard from many of our customers that the agents that are being built by employees are useful not just only to them, but also to their peers, as well as their entire team. This is where we have enabled employees to be able to share their agents with other employees as well. And here again, we have kept governance as one of the central principles. So by default, any of these sharing requests require an admin's approval.
OK, great. So there is some control. I can share an agent, but somebody gets to control how much I can share, how wide I can share. Great to know. OK, so we talked about how the agent sharing works, but could you also walk me through and walk the audience through what does the agent has access to, right?
Yeah.
Like what tools can it access to, what data can it access to? Could you give us a rundown?
Yeah, so before I talk about this specific problem and this specific use case, I'd like to introduce two new foundational building blocks that we are releasing at Next. The first is agent identity. So every agent, at the time of their creation, is given an unique, immutable identity. And this identity is associated with every single action that the agent takes, whether it takes it with a user's permission or on its own behalf. The agent identity is always present and can be audited. The second building block is the agent gateway. Now, agent gateway replaces complex networking configurations with a simple, fully managed service. It handles all of the traffic between your agents and all of its targets. These can be other agents or data sources, MCP servers, et cetera. And then the gateway acts as a uniform policy enforcement point. I also want to call out, because I get this question often from our customers, that the agent gateway is not a single point of failure. It is an API abstraction on top of Google's networking backbone. So now, with the agent identity as well as agent gateway, you can author many different kinds of policies. One of these policies are access control policies for an agent. So you can define what specific agents, what specific data sources a particular agent can access. You can also define specific conditional rules. So you can say that within an MCP server, it is only allowed to access certain tools, or you can say that it can only have access to certain kinds of methods. So an example of this policy would be that you can allow an agent to access the workspace MCP server to just read emails, but not send any emails. And then, since the gateway allows you to create many different kinds of policies, it also supports service extensions or third-party plugins. So as Google, we want to enable all of our customers with the choice of the security products or the policy application products that they would want to use. So for example, you can bring in a Palo Alto Airs product, and you can implement that in the agent's runtime. And you can do that with many other different policy products that are present using Google Cloud Marketplace that are integrated with our systems and offered via Google Cloud Marketplace.
I love the flexibility. Like, I get to control what to share, who has access. I also get to control what the agent can actually do. Great. OK, but fundamentally, let's actually double down and go deep. Agents access data, right? Agents access data through the connector. What does the Gemini Enterprise connector make sure that it is secure, there is no hacker leakages, all of it?
Yeah. So this is pretty fundamental to how the Gemini Enterprise app is built. We have the principle of zero trust, that is zero ACL leakage. So if you connect an application with Gemini Enterprise app, we always respect and enforce the user permissions. So if a user does not have access to our data outside of the app, they will never be able to get that access from the Gemini Enterprise app. And this is all done using industry standards as well as best practices of OAuth 2.0. And then all of the GE connectors we have, you leverage agentic search, which means that your data stays within your application. It is never copied or ingested into the Gemini Enterprise app. So this eliminates any accidental ACL leakages as well. And then there are other benefits here. First is instant time to value. Since you are simply connecting your application, it can be done with a few simple clicks and in just a few minutes. And then it also offers lower total cost of ownership. Because we are not copying any data, there are no additional costs related to data storage. There are no additional data management operations that are required. OK, actually, there's one more point. Now, despite all of this, AI can still make mistakes, right? Which is where we need human control. And this is especially important if the agent is taking actions that require updating your application. For example, sending out emails or updating Jira tickets. This is where we always enforce human control. And for anything that the agent does outside of the Gemini Enterprise app, there's always human in the loop.
Great. I love your take. AI can make mistakes. Okay? But anyway, good to know how the connectors make it secure with zero hacker leakages, reducing the the overall TCO, all of it. The next question which is in my mind is something which we all learned at school. You can't fix, you can't scale what you can't measure. Talk us through the observability capabilities within Gemini Enterprise and the Agent Cloud.
Yeah. So we have enabled observability at many different levels. So at the highest level, you have the central app level dashboard that provides you a bird's eye view of how the Gemini Enterprise app is being used. So you can find out how many active users you have. You can understand the retention rates. You can understand what are the top agents that are being used by the organization. Then at the next level, you also have per agent metrics. So these metrics can give you an understanding of how the agent is performing and what's the adoption like. So you can see metrics like latencies, error rates, number of requests, number of tool invocations for every single Gemini Enterprise agent. And then to enable granular observability as well as troubleshooting, we have enabled OpenTelemetry compliant tracing. So this allows you to see at a session level what were the various tools invoked, what was the latency for every single hop, who was the user who initiated that session, Were there any other agents involved in that particular session? So that gives you much more deeper granularity. And because it is OTel compliant, you can also export all of this data into an observability product of your choice to be able to further analyze it.
Great. One another thing which is I'm sure in each one of us mind is, I read an article where somebody was trying to order a burger with McDonald's agent as well as a burrito with the Chipotle agent. In addition to ordering that, they asked it to actually code a Fibonacci series Python, and it generated it, right? So in that sense, how do I actually protect from prompt injections?
Yeah.
And I promise this is my last question, audience. This is my last question.
Yes. So to prevent against such attacks or risks, Gemini Enterprise is deeply integrated with Model Armor. You can enable Model Armor at Gemini Enterprise's ingress with a few simple steps. So this basically means that every single prompt and all the final responses from the agents are scanned by Model Armor, and if something gets flagged, it gets automatically blocked. And Model Armor has several pre-built detectors that provide protection against direct as well as indirect prompt injection, but goes beyond. It can also block for harmful content, leakage of PII information, or even financial information, or other kinds of sensitive data, since Model Armor is also integrated with SDP, sensitive data protection product that we have. It can also protect against unsafe URLs and other kinds of detectors.
Okay.
I'd also like to, one more point, I'd also like to emphasize that Model Armor is available to all Gemini Enterprise app customers at no additional costs. So this is our seriousness to model security, and we want all of our customers to have these settings enabled by default.
So in essence, you're saying if I'm using Gemini Enterprise, I can't order a burger and I can't ask it to code an app. Okay, bad. But anyway, with jokes apart, you talked about prompt injection, but more important is about my data. My data differentiates myself from every other competitor in there. So how can I ensure that there is no exfiltration, my sensitive information like PII, all of it is not being exposed? How do I control it?
Yeah. So I spoke about Model Armor being at the ingress, but you can also set up SDP policies, sensitive data protection policies, for each of your data connectors. This ensures that AI never gets to see information that is sensitive or confidential. So with SDP, you get more than 200 different classifiers that have natural language understanding, and you can also create your own custom classifiers. And lastly, one very important point here is that SDP automatically recognizes Microsoft sensitivity labels. So if you have a document that is tagged as confidential or sensitive, those documents would always be blocked, and they would never be accessible by AI. So just to summarize, you have complete data security with Gemini Enterprise with Model Armor that comes pre-built with SDP at the ingress for prompt and response protection. And then you have sensitive data protection policies for data inbound for all of your connectors.
Okay, thank you, Anusheel. We all learned, I'm going to come out of my cameo, by the way. You can all clap, no. We all learned how Gemini Enterprise makes governance, security, and control of your agents, of your agent access, of your data, a cakewalk. Okay? So with that said, thank you, Anusheel. I will use this opportunity to invite Bright on stage to talk us through the Palo Alto's AI adoption journey.
Thanks, Anusheel. Thanks, Pramod, for the intro. Myself, Bright. I run infrastructure engineering for Palo Alto Networks, responsible for AI adoption across the board. We talked about agent, and Pramod gave a pros, right? You know, I can tell about a real life story. I was talking to one of my engineer. Hey, what are you doing? Can I borrow like a minute from you? Hey, I'm talking to Erika right now. Just can you hold on for a minute? Okay. And he's done with Erika, and then he's talking to Eric right now. And I was like, I've never known these people, you know, who are they, what are they doing? These are my agents. So, you know, this is my personal agent doing, you know, SRE stuff, and this is my personal agent taking care of business-related communication. I'm like, wow, that's perfect. And every engineer I talk to, they have at least 2 agents, right? One for right hand, one for left hand, and then they try to figure out what use cases they want to do. And this talks about the agent sprawl in general on where we are in the journey with respect to Palo Alto Networks. We started AI adoption a couple of years back. And initially, it was a challenge because the R&D teams are so used to building code by themselves, and bringing in the adoption was an uphill battle, getting everybody on board. And business enablement side was very easy because the business users always relied on R&D to take care of the stuff for them. And now they got super excited that I can solve this problem by myself without relying on the R&D teams and plethora of meetings and so on. And of course, support functions and trainings and so on. And we went through a transformation stage where everybody had 100 use cases to figure out and built the agent by themselves and tried to address a minuscule problem which bothers them every day, right? And now we are in between the scaling and optimization phase where everybody have 100 agents. And they are trying to keep on building more and more agents, which makes it harder because how would I ensure role-based access control? How would I ensure governance? How would I make sure that these use cases are supportable from a longer-term perspective? And how would we enable the users on solving the problem by themselves, but at the same time, do not create an operational overhead going forward? And then comes the challenge where how would I optimize cost? How would I consolidate between platforms now, that people are using different type of agents, either from an IDE perspective or as well as the orchestration perspective, et cetera. And the other biggest challenge when it comes to agents is the visibility. I mean, Pramod and Anusheel talked about quite a lot, right? Now that we have a lot of agents doing something, and the whole idea behind agents is that it does non-deterministic workflow, but we have no idea how it is established and how it works real time in our enterprise world. Right? And Palo Alto being a security-first company, we trust everybody, we verify to make sure that things are working the way it is intended to do. So that visibility problem was the biggest blocker for us to move forward in any of the agentic adoption. Right, either by using from a developer productivity perspective or as well as the business optimization perspective. Right? And what we did is we worked with our vendors, and Google being a design partner with us, helped us provide the right level of visibility so that we can actually observe what's going on, figure out how to protect, and then take the learning to govern from a longer-term perspective and manage these things without impacting the productivity of the employee by any means. Either be solving a business problem or solving a customer problem or actually help with day-to-day developer productivity. When we talk about agents, oftentimes we misunderstand that it is going to improve my productivity, but we don't know how it is going to improve our productivity. Right? And measuring that is very hard for us. Right? Now that everybody does AI, we have no idea how it is being used in a constructive way or a destructive way, and figure out how we would scale that from a future focus point of view. And I can give an example where those days when there is a new programming language, when Google introduced Go, everybody want to jump on Go and they want to convert their Python scripts and everything else to Go. In the modern world, it's different where the excitement comes from the non-R&D audience, where earlier, because of their reliance with R&D, there were a lot of meetings, they tried to explain their use cases and so on. Now that they started building the use cases by themselves, the challenge is that they are not aware of traditional development best practices. So how would I secure my infrastructure from an unintended consequences become a big deal? And we as Palo Alto, of course, we use a plethora of tools from what we build to protect different stages of the agent interaction itself. So AIRS being our runtime security platform which governs AI, which interacts very well with the Google platform. Our next generation firewalls introspect and introspect the security point of view. And Prisma browser acts as an interactive layer between the user and the agents to understand what is going on, and we provide the visibility. Now we have visibility. What are we going to do with it, right? And with that, we have our own SIAM and SOAR platform, which is Agentics, which gets that information, understand, try to build a context around it, and able to govern and able to take action around that. This is our journey with Palo Alto Networks from an agentic adoption.
First of all, thanks again, Bright. But with that said, I'm actually going to continue my cameo. Actually going to ask Bright a lot of questions which you have on behalf of you. Of course, as behalf of my customers, right, the first question everybody asks, what was your selection criteria to pick a AI orchestration tool of choice within Palo Alto Networks?
So Palo Alto emphasize on security, goes without saying. Our selection criteria primarily depends on how much visibility we get and how can we make our life easier, but at the same time, doesn't make it much more complicated than what it is right now, right? And of course, we hear stories about agents going and deleting databases, doing, things which you don't intend to do. And the selection criteria primarily depends on how would we define a boundary around a product. So we want to know, what's going on, and we want to take action. So when we use Google products, it inherently gives us the capability on what type of visibility we can get, both from the interaction perspective, the backend perspective, and the interface to take action when something goes wrong. So.
Awesome, awesome. I mean, especially I like how Palo Alto, being a security-first company themselves, looked at Google Cloud providing that fundamentally out of the box. Great. The second question which I had is, could you walk us through a couple of use cases which you have rolled out inside Palo Alto Network, where Gemini Enterprise is being used and adopted by actual users?
So in my job, I get at least 500. I mean, let me talk about my stuff first, right? How Gemini Enterprise made my life easier. First, the availability of connectors and the visibility, what I get from it. I get 400 emails a day, minimum, from real users, outside of the automation ones. And how would I make sense out of it? And I need to prepare my daily report. I need to work on my weekly report. And my teams were generating all these things and sending it over to me. That contributes to at least 10 to 20 meetings every week. So that's easily 10 to 20 hours. With Gemini Enterprise coming in, that's mere seconds to minutes, right? I get a summary of what I need to do. So I have my personal executive assistant sitting right there and giving me instruction on what I need to take care that day, and also reminds me that what I miss, and able to set me straight on my course without having those meetings and wasting time. And I do love meetings, but I don't want to spend meetings on getting statuses. I would rather brainstorm on figuring out what needs to be done. And from a business perspective, our finance team went and looked at hey, we're spending a lot of time on looking at travel and expenses, identifying anomalies, approving, and it takes time. That always create a nervousness among people. Is my expense going to be approved? I spent a couple $1,000, and would I need to pay from my pocket, or our expense team is going to approve it? That was one of the first use cases which we tried, and we realized the potential where how anomaly detection works by using our agents and figure out how to make my life easier, also my customer's life easier, right? And that's a business use case. From an engineering use case, we have things like the same thing, what I talked about from an email perspective, but a completely different angle, which is, hey, I need to look at all the JIRAs which I need to take care, and how it is related to a project, how would I attach it against Confluence, and how would I read my documents stored on Google Drive, etc. And if I want to build a context around it, and if I were to pivot certain action, then I need to bring 20 people into a meeting room to understand what I need to do. But now I can safely skip the meetings and able to make sense out of it from the minutes of meetings which are done by the corresponding stakeholders, so that I don't spend much time on dealing with it every day, right? These are some of the use cases which comes in, and people are getting creative about it and try to solve the problem on their own. that introduced a challenge where how could I bring the fundamental structural framework so that if I address my problem, how would I actually validate the business case with my stakeholders and address it from a structural way, just like how we do software development in old school ways.
Great. First of all, I like that finance agent and the travel and expense agent. Did you guys figure out he has to be careful where he's putting his money in Vegas when he's filing expenses? But anyway, again, jokes apart, the last question, folks, okay? What would be one piece of advice that you would want to give as a leader in the AI adoption and the AI rollout, especially in the area of security, governance, all of that?
Identifying the use case is becoming the tricky problem for AI adoption right now. Like 2 years back, if I were to go and ask people to use AI, and they're like, why would I use AI? I can do a better job at it. A year later, then I have like 100 use cases coming in from an AI perspective. And that brings in a challenge where how would I actually govern the usage? Not from a security perspective, from a business value proposition perspective, the boundary perspective of what it needs to be done, and looking at a data privacy perspective, and operationalization and scale perspective, right? The last thing we want to do is like have 25,000 agents running in your ecosystem where you have no idea what is happening, which is a recipe for failure or a disaster, right? So identify your use cases, brainstorm, actually delegate it to an agent for you to summarize and say that, hey, these are all like, the stuff which the 20,000 agents are doing, which could be established by 20 agents probably, right? And have a focused point of view on how to address it from a business needs perspective.
First of all, thank you very much. Big round of applause to Bright thank you for being our customer and great having you on stage. Okay, thank you folks. So I said that the third part of the agenda is the most important part of the agenda. Okay, you guys all stayed, so thank you. What is that? That's the key takeaway. I don't know how many of you were taking notes. I took notes diligently if you were looking at my phone of what Anusheel was walking and what Bright was saying, and these are the key takeaways. Believe me, I did try to make it into 3, but my agent, who I asked it to summarize, made it into 5. Okay? So the first one, build a single pane, a centralized view of all your agents within your enterprise so that you could actually go discover them, lifecycle manage them. Okay? You need a capability like the agent registry, which is available and integrated into Gemini Enterprise. The second thing, what is the promise of democratization if I can't share my found gold with everybody here, right? I want to share the found gold of my agent with everybody here, but with the right controls and attribution. You need capabilities like the agent identity, which Anusheel talked about, which is available out of the box within Gemini Enterprise, so that you could actually go and audit what the agent performed. Great. The third aspect is, okay, I need to control what the agent can get access to, what information, what data, all of that through easily implementable policies. Okay? So for that, I need a single policy enforcement point. If imagine agents going everywhere and attacking the same system through different routes, you have lost it. So you need a single policy enforcement point like what Thomas talked about on stage today, the newly introduced agent gateway, which is integrated into Gemini Enterprise. The fourth one, connectors, data, as I talked about, that's the core differentiator of your enterprise. You want to prevent it from your prompt injections, protect your sensitive data, from your labels to Microsoft Purview integration, all of that. You need model armor and sensitive data protection, which allows you to do custom own policies. The fifth and the final one is all of this is good. I need to know what agent is running, when is it running, how much it is being used, what it is accessing, what is the performance, what is the latency. Please build agent observability into your systems. Okay? And agent observability, thanks to Google Cloud's OTel work, it's all based on open framework, and you get it out of the box as part of the Gemini Enterprise agent platform. So all of these 5 things, agent registry, agent identity, agent gateway, model armor SDP, and finally agent observability. That's what is your takeaway. So thanks for joining us.